that will send sound waves. Both sides love every mystery. It's about the Bermuda Triangle, UFOs, Sasquatch, the Loch Ness Monster, any cryptid that explain that very easily. Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will have a very interesting episode because we will be talking about the Cuban Atlantis or the Cuban sunken city of the Cape of Santo Antonio. So let's dive into it. I'm sure most of you which are watching this video are familiar with the subject of this Cuban Atlantis or the sunken city because this was a discovery that was made in 2001 and immediately got kind of viral in internet. I think every one of you have somehow come across an article or a YouTube video about it. A lot has been written and a lot of theories and speculations and even conspiracy theories and attempts to explain something in the most creative ways. Okay. So I decided to make this video for various reasons. First, well, to set the record straight, at least from my end. Second, because this subject, since the discovery was made in 2001, every second year comes back into the internet and is again a little wave or news or analysis or articles about it. And every second year, like a clock, I get an avalanche of emails, messages, phone calls from people I know and from people that I don't know asking me what I think about it.
That's always a funny feature about conspiracies, that somehow they become cyclical.
Yeah.
People forget about it for a little bit and then bring it back up and no real answer is given and then they continue going down and they bring them back up. It's like, geez.
How does that happen? I don't know. But I have experienced it since 2001. It's almost like a clock. Every 2 years, I get again asked by my friends and other people what I think about it. They send me the messages and said, Alex, have you seen this? What do you think? Okay. And the third, I want to make this video because I think it will be a very good way to express myself, give my opinion, also share with you the knowledge I have about this project. I was part of this project since the very beginning. I have access to the unedited images from the side-scan sonar, meaning that I have the original images from the side-scan sonar. I will share them with you today and we will analyze them together and we will all have the same data to make any conclusion, right?
I was going to say to draw our own conclusions from, yeah.
And in that way, next year or the next second year, when this comes back into the internet again, because it will come back, the same questions, then I will recommend my friends and people who contact me that they can watch this video so they will have nicely summarized everything I think about it. Let me start by saying that this project started around 1997 when a couple came to Cuba to present a project to find 3 shipwrecks that they were, in their opinion, they were very important. I will not tell the names of people here. The subject is so widely spread in internet that you can easily go and Google them and find out who is who. I prefer not to mention names of people, although you will know who is who because these are the protagonists of the story anyway. This nice couple that came is a Russian lady and a Canadian gentleman. They went to Cuba with the intention, they proposed to the government government to find 3 shipwrecks. The government having a company, which was Carisub, the company I worked in, that did exactly that, looking for shipwrecks and finding them and study them, obviously put them in contact with us to try to develop the project together. We had the first meeting with them in Carisub headquarters. We were a group of specialists talking to them, and they claimed that they had historical information, archival information on 3 shipwrecks that sank in the west of the San Antonio Cape, in the western side of Cuba, in the Guanacabibes Peninsula. They sank there during a hurricane, and they were so loaded with treasure that the loss of these 3 shipwrecks changed the course of European economy.
Man, come
Okay,
on.
okay. That's what I mentioned, that context is important, because you
Yeah.
have to understand which kind of people are you talking and you're working with.
The character as a whole, as you can imagine, guys, we talk about the topics of the episode sometimes a little bit in advance. And I was wondering why my dad was so adamant that some things didn't check out right from the beginning. And that's why I'm laughing. It's starting to make sense to me now. Yes, go on.
Well, to give that statement in a serious meeting with specialists, I mean, because in the meeting with us was also Cesar Garcia del Pino, he already passed, but he was like the most reputed historian of naval history in Cuba. The man was a genius, and he had all access to the archives. He spent his life investigating the archives. So talking to Cesar in an archival matter, you really have to be serious. You really have to comply with the methodology and with the protocol of historical research. So making this kind of statement immediately put us in a, I wouldn't say in a defensive way, but in a way that you would not...
Skeptical.
Skeptical, that's the word. Skeptical, because saying this with a straight face, it really demands that you believe in it. And if you believe in it, you are missing something in the historical research, because first of all, that never happened. The course of the European economy was not changed by a loss of a ship. The only change in the course of the European economy that I know was that they got richer and richer every year with the things that they found in America. So it wasn't any event that will mark a moment in which suddenly the European economy went bankrupt.
Before and after.
Yeah, went bankrupt, and much less by the loss of 3 ships. If you analyze just that, but you add that, obviously, we asked them, okay, where are the archival files that state that, and let us work together on this. They never produced these files. So they said, no, that's still very confidential, but well, okay, we were planning to work together, so things could remain confidential till a certain point, and then it should be shared. Otherwise, you cannot work with someone. So they never produced these documents. The company, Carisub, was not like super excited about the project, but on top of it, they claim that these ships have sunk in deep waters. That's not what we did. We had, for instance, 5 ships, our expedition ships. You have seen them in other episodes, because I love these ships and I love putting them in the screen. But they were prepared for shallow water archaeology. So diving and going in shallow places, not for a deep survey. It was survey in deep waters.
Can I ask you to define a little bit shallow waters from deep waters? What is considered shallow? What is considered deep waters?
In my case, because this is not like a very strict definition, to me, it's like, okay, shallow waters, the way I see it, is the depth in which I can dive. And we can explore and study and excavate the shipwreck by the means of diving, scuba diving. And deep waters would be, let's say, after 100 meters of depth, when you start requiring remote operated vehicles, remote sensing equipment, not the diver itself to do the job, but with machinery.
Yeah.
That is how I divide it. So after 100 meters of depth, for me, it's already deep waters, because it's out of our reach as divers.
Yeah.
So the ships that we had in the company, they were preferred for shallow waters. They couldn't comply with the deep water survey. So the company appointed me to go with them and try to find a suitable boat in Cuba. We visited many ships in different institutions that had ships that could eventually fit for that task. And they ended up deciding for the Ulysses, which was a research vessel that was working with the Science Academy in many projects in the sea, mostly about marine biology and oceanology. That's why I was friends with everyone there, because I'm a marine biologist myself. And it was a very big ship. It was not exactly prepared to do an archaeological deep water survey, but it could be easily adapted, and that's what they did. So this was the ship that they used. I obviously knew the entire crew and the entire group of people who worked there with them, and they set out to look for these 3 shipwrecks that changed the course of history in Europe. So they started this survey in 2001. The objective was to scan the part of the seabed that reportedly these ships were lost. The ships were from the 16th century, so 1500 something, meaning very old. And I will explain now why this is important. They estimated, by the supposed files that they have, they estimated that the ships were, yes, in deep waters, meaning after the drop-off of the insular platform. So already in the, not abyss, but in the ocean floor, way beyond the reach of diving. And they wanted to scan that area and locate these shipwrecks. The instrument that was selected to do that was the right one, which is the side-scan sonar, because it will allow for the exploration of large areas in one go. And I'm saying this because we will start here analyzing what was done and how. Because let me tell you again that I'm in constant contact. I was not in the expedition myself. I was already in Portugal working, but my friends were all in the expedition, and we exchanged data every day and jokes and, the stories. And first, to look for a certain target with the side-scan sonar, you have to set the side-scan sonar to a certain frequency, and the span of the area that you are exploring, which is an area by both sides of the side-scan sonar. The side-scan sonar is simple. It's an instrument that, most of the time is shaped like a rocket that will send sound waves both sides of the instrument, and these sound waves will hit something and they will come back. And because of the difference of time that these waves take to come back to the sensor, it will be drawing a shape. Also, the strength of the signal coming back, it will tell you something about the density of the object that reflected that sound wave. This is the principle. There is no magic. It's just science, and very simple one. Side-scan sonars and sonars, they exist since very long time as well. So you have to set the side-scan sonar to find a small target, because a 1550 something shipwreck is by force a small target. They were small ships. Very little of the ship itself will still remain. So you have to set the side-scan sonar to be able to recognize such a small target. When they were doing that, apparently they spent months looking for these shipwrecks. Obviously, they didn't find anything that they claimed that they were looking for. And coincidentally, when time and funds started running out, they came across these images in the side-scan sonar. And why I started saying that the setting of the side-scan sonar is important, because if you have it set properly to look for a historic shipwreck, the density of your data is some, and it's not prepared
Register that much area.
to register area that would make sense in the case of a larger structure or feature.
Yeah.
Let's say feature, not structure, because this is one thing in all the articles that I have seen and in videos, that people immediately talk about structures, which implies that it's some something man-made. Even if then you say it's no,
Correct.
it's something man-made. So let's not call it structure, let's call it features. And they came across that. I will show you the original images, what they discovered later on, and you will draw your own conclusions. Okay, what happened with the side scan sonar? Because let's put a little bit of science into the subject. What happened with the side scan sonar, and how can you rely in the data that they give you? Because, for instance, I have read articles and I have seen YouTube videos where people say undisputable image of the side scan sonar. Like, you have seen the image of the side scan sonar and it's absolute. It's something that proves something. Well, it's not like that. The side scan sonar, as I explained, it will give you shapes of objects on the seabed regardless of their nature. It will just be whatever feature on the seabed you will see it. But the side scan sonar image by itself says nothing. It's an instrument. It's a tool. It's like a thermometer. You put a thermometer on you and you see that you have high temperature. It doesn't tell you that you have a flu.
It doesn't tell you what disease you have. It just tells you, hey, your temperature is high.
You need a doctor to put that temperature together with a lot of symptoms and your story and everything to try to diagnose you with something that would be close to the truth. The same happened here. The images of side scan sonar change a lot depending on how it's operated and the particular moment of the day and the depth of the sensor of the side scan sonar itself and the distance over the seabed and the weather conditions. Many things. I can show you images. For instance, in this image that you will be seeing now, that is the side scan sonar image of a porcelain wreck. It's a wreck in Indonesia that it was full of porcelain, and we passed the side scan sonar and we found it. As you will see in the image, you can see a slight difference of texture in the image. You don't see anything very conspicuous or obvious.
You don't see 3D images.
No, the side scan sonar
don't. The main thing
it doesn't give you 3D images. That is a rendering that comes afterwards, and that is where problems started. Then I will show you this other image, which is also a shipwreck with porcelain in Indonesia. There are two different shipwrecks, and you will see that the images are quite different. One image shows you something quite faint, quite difficult to spot, and the other one show you something which is quite conspicuous. Okay, when you dive in both places, because I have to dive in every place that we detect on the side scan sonar or on the magnetometer, what you see in the seabed is pretty similar. Both wrecks, in person, let's say, when you arrive to the wreck, what you see is something very similar. So you would have expected to have a similar images in the side scan sonar, and we didn't. Then we also have this image that is showing you a wreck with the heel of porcelain, which is quite clear, and this other image that it looks quite similar, right? It looks quite similar to this one of the wreck with the heel of porcelain. Well, it is a hole in the ground made by the anchor of our ship.
Not even relevant.
No, it's a hole we made just by pulling the anchor up.
Chilling there by literally anchoring.
And these two images are much more similar to the first two images that I show you, and they are completely opposite things. One thing is a hill, the other thing is a hole. One thing is an historic important shipwreck, and the other thing is a hole we made with the anchor. So analyzing the images by itself of the side scan sonar won't take you anywhere, because it's like analyzing readings from any other instrument without the context, same as I mentioned with the thermometer. But you need to know first, how was that day? Why I insist in the weather? When you are running your side scan sonar, you are towing that instrument behind your boat at a certain depth that you want to have it. You want to have the side scan sonar at a certain depth so you get a more clear image of the seabed. But you have big waves, and these waves will push your boat. And at that moment, the boat will speed up. And when the boat speed up, this instrument will go up a bit, and then it will go down and also change its speed. That reflects in the image that you're getting with every yank on the cable of the side scan sonar will reflect in anomalies. It will reflect in shapes. It will reflect in something that at the end is nothing. If you pass it again on the better conditions, you will get a completely different pictures. Also, the angle, the direction in which you are towing that side scan sonar, it will give you a different reflection of the object that is in the seabed. Same as here. You have an object that if you turn it in many different positions, you will see a different shape because not all objects are cylindric. So they will be in different
Or
shapes.
geometric.
You will see different shapes. So the same is for the side-scan sonar. Another example. I was invited in Nicaragua by a friend of mine, Juan Sebastián Chamorro, because there was a barge which was lost between Bluefields and Corn Island. It was an important ship. It was a barge that takes supplies to Corn Island. So it was an important ship that should be found and rescued. So I went there with the side-scan sonar to try to find this barge. They were looking for the barge for a few days. They couldn't locate it. So I went there to help them. And we locate the barge. And I will now show you the images. In this image you are seeing here, you can barely see the barge. If you pay attention, you will see a rectangular shape that is under the prompt in the display. I have to put it on top of the barge so I can show it to people because otherwise they will not see it. It's a very nice rectangular shape, but of the size of the barge. And you said, okay, most probably this is a barge. And we are talking about a huge object of 50 meters long times 30 meters wide, sunk less than a month ago. So it is still complete, not misshaped in any way. So it's like it would be new. So in different tracks of the side-scan sonar, you get different images. You see this one? Do you see this one already? Now you see this other one? Well, you can see, let's say, half a barge.
I can't believe this is the most accurate and modern tool. It's so sensitive.
Well, with the development of technology, there are other incredibly accurate instruments. We are talking about the side-scan sonar, let's say, the regular one, the one that everyone uses. I assume that the military and big scientific institution will have beautiful stuff. Already 3D scanners and all this, all that already exists. But in the case of the Nicaragua barge, the name was Claudia, you will see in this image, looks like half a barge. And then you have another image which looks like a cucumber, not a barge whatsoever. And it also looks much bigger. It looks much bigger because we changed the settings to see it closer and to be able to see a little bit more detail because we were planning to dive. So we needed actually to dive to confirm that shape that we found. It was the barge Claudia that we were looking for. I'm showing you these images because it will give you an example of how different could be one image to the other of the same object. And just because the angle in which the sensor went in through that object and the distance and the depth and everything, the image changed drastically. And you need to be on board and you need to be experienced in running these kind of instruments to try to make sense out of it. Showing me or showing someone, it doesn't matter how much experience it has, just the pure images of the side-scan sonar of something without context, it could be deceiving. It could take you to arrive to the wrong conclusions. So this takes me to another point, which it was probably the one that triggered the viral nature of this news, that it was that a very reputed geologist that was working in the Natural History Museum in Cuba, he was invited and he was shown the images of the side-scan sonar, and he was polite and he said it was not conclusive. He said, yeah, it's very interesting. It could be anything. Of course, he has, because he's a reputed geologist, he has a great knowledge about geology, about rocks and about the earth and the planet, but he's not familiar with side-scan sonar images. It's like if you give me an electrocardiogram, I will see a graph.
You'll be like, that's a graph, you have a heart.
But yeah, it doesn't even, for me, doesn't even prove that you have a heart. It could be a glitch. I don't know. And a geologist is not necessarily the most qualified person to make interpretations on side-scan sonar images which were given to him without the entire context, because you would have to be there and to take your own notes if you are doing what you're doing to try to get out good conclusions. The fact, because this in every article he's quoted, because obviously he's the only scientist that was all around. and media obviously wanting to validate the possibility of a sunken city or of a pyramids. He will need the validation of a scientist. I mean,
At
that
least.
let me make a point here. Don't get me wrong. I'm a scientist, but I love every mystery. I read everything that falls in my hands about the Bermuda Triangle,
I love that too.
UFOs, Sasquatch, the Loch Ness Monster, any cryptid. I love that. I would really like any of those to be true, so we have fun. But when it comes to Atlantis and the sunken city, you also have to, it doesn't matter how romantic that could sound, you should have a little bit also of common sense when approaching this thing. I will show you now the original images of the scan sonar, the images of that expedition that created this myth. No, sorry, this legend.
No, this myth, this conspiracy theory.
Right, right.
That's what it is.
The images that created this conspiracy theory, and you will analyze by yourself. You will see here a normal swap of the side scan sonar over the seabed with some shadows and some apparent kind of angles that, because of the reflection that these shapes have, you can see it not only in what seems to be an object, but on this side and on the other side. It is clearly a yank in the side scan sonar. It does not reflect the shape of that object. And
when you say a yank, you say a pull.
A pull, yeah. It was a change in speed and in depth at the same time. So you can see that in 2 or 3 of the sections of these images. And I mean, you can pause the video and you can see the images for minutes if you want. But then I challenge you to explain me how these images ended up in this, which is what we know all from internet. This 3D, this is not even an interpretation of these size scan sonar images. This is a hoax. This is something that has been made.
Men manipulated.
With the purpose. Yeah, but sometimes you manipulate the image, let's say, to put higher the contrast so you can see some features that you don't see in the first image. But one thing is doing that, and another thing is just building a city.
Reconstructing a Mayan complex out of nothing.
They built a city to the liking of what they thought that would be super cool to find. Science doesn't work like that. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I have a scientific formation and way of thinking, but I think it helps when you can confirm the data that you are getting from somewhere. And why I wanted in the beginning to mention some of the weird thing of these couples is because another example, that lady, she claimed to have been in an ultra secret expedition that involved the Vatican in Cuba to recover the Merida treasure. I will make an episode on the Merida treasure, and you will see that in this sentence there is not even one word which is true. So when you receive data or a statement in an article from an event or of something that you cannot double check, because you cannot double check, the quality is just validated by the reputation of the researcher that puts it out. When someone in microbiology discover a new type of virus or a new stem cell that does this or that, you cannot do that at home. You cannot replicate it to see if he was right. So the reputation of that person, his track record, her track record, or the investigations they have done validate that this information is good and you can rely on that. So this marvelous sunken city coming from a researcher that has claimed along the way some incredible statements, well, it will make you think, let me take this with a pinch of salt, to put it mildly. But then, using the common sense, which many people said is the less common of the senses, we can see that, yes, of course, I didn't want to get into the geology part of the story, because in the videos I have seen in YouTube, there is at least one of them that explain that very easily and very clearly, so I don't want to repeat that. There are many reasons why geologically that shouldn't have happened, couldn't have happened. This is 650 meters deep. So for an event of that magnitude to sink a complete city to 650 meters, that is something that there is no record of. And we have records of things that have happened millions of years ago, because that's why scientists studied this kind of disciplines. And also, you don't need to be an historian, you don't need to be an archaeologist to understand that if there is a civilization with the technological advance to create such huge pyramids and streets and everything that you can see in this 3D generated hoax, all this human settlement, the huge one, if there would have been a civilization like that in that place, because this is very close to the Cuban coast. It is deep, but it's very close to the Cuban coast. And you can assume it's close. I mean, it's less than 12 miles because they were working in Cuban waters. So it's 12 miles away from the island shelf. It is very close to the country. Such a civilization didn't leave any trace in Cuba or in land nearby, less than 10 miles away. You have the Yucatan Peninsula, where you have remains of the Mayan civilization. You have some buildings, you have Chichen Itza, you have pyramids, you have observatories for the stars. All that you have it there. It's Mayan, it is being studied, it is great. And then you arrive in Cuba, and our aborigines, they didn't leave behind one single building. It was a completely different civilization. It was a completely different human group. So somewhere very close to them, it was all this super advanced civilization that just disappeared.
No, and they didn't try to emulate it. They didn't try to, come on.
They didn't kill them all to start with, because that's what they would have done and conquer the country. So no, guys, no, I'm sorry. There are so many. I could be talking here for 2 hours. I don't want to do that. I just wanted to take the chance to show you the original images of the side-scan sonar, to give you some technical background of how this data, how these images were collected, so you can draw your own conclusions. I'm really sorry to be probably breaking bad news to any of you that would love the subject, but in my perception, in the way I see it, with the elements I have, with the information that I have, this cannot be further from the truth. It makes nice articles, it makes nice YouTube videos. This one, you could find it entertaining, as you said. You could find it entertaining, but please don't look at it as a hidden fact that governments don't want you to know, because that will make some very dark secrets come up. It's not. In the best case scenario, there are some few rocks down there, which, surprise, there are rocks in the seabed. There are everywhere. The last example I would put, in Cape Verde, we were working in two wrecks, in the Guadalupe 4 and another wreck which we don't know the name, that they were about 1 mile distance between the two wrecks. And as part of our investigation, we wanted to swim between the two wrecks to see if there was any debris from the wrecks that were going in that direction. I'm talking about 6 meters of depth, crystal clean waters. Group of divers, we swam between the two wrecks 1 mile away. It's also not that long. So we swam between the wrecks and we found a ship. What we thought it was a ship, with our eyes, not with the side-scan sonar, with our eyes. It was a ship. Trust me, it took us more than 2 hours diving there for me to convince myself that it was a rock formation. It was basaltic. It was the rock of the area that somehow it went up in a way and then cooled down, and then it took this shape. It took me a very deep look at it to scratch from my head that this was a ship somehow covered by rocks, because it was so similar. So yes, there would be some rocks down there which by any means deserve so much noise. And I'm sorry to say, there is no mysterious or hidden civilization in the west side of Cuba at 650 meters deep. Well, I'm glad that you got this far into the video, and I hope you like it. I hope some of your questions have been answered. If some of them haven't, please leave it in the comment section. I have much more data to share. Problem is that otherwise the video would be too long. Maybe I do another video on this. But if you have questions for that, please let me know. Leave it in the comment section and I will gladly answer each of them. So let's keep on diving.